and so far MVP hasn't been able to figure out a way to really harass the Zerg at all. This entire game, it's just been Zerg gone wild. That's the theme of this game, and look at all the hatcheries he has as well. You remember back in the old days, what the... I was gonna say, remember back in the old days we did not have queens to inject larvae, but we did have queens in the air, and this is the Zerg old queen, which you actually never saw in BroodWar in a pro game. They were just not that good at a high level, and for whatever reason here, we have a billion queens out on the map right now. This is actually really crazy, and this entire game I've been wondering, what has Fokins been doing with his gas? He's just been making a handful of defilers and lurkers. He should have more gas saved up, and it looks like instead of investing into ultras, he's decided to invest into queens! And they're all hidden. They're all just backed up right here, hiding. Now the queens in BroodWar did have a couple of very cool attacks. I'll just name them off for you guys. They had this move called Parasite, which can reveal a Terran unit. It's kind of like a dropping a changeling, I guess you could say. But the coolest ability of all, or one of the coolest abilities, was Ensnare, which you could actually use to slow down a Terran squad of Marines. Kind of like Plague, not Plague, but Fungal Growth, I guess. But the other cool ability is Spawn Broodling, and that instantly one-shot KOs any ground unit it targets and creates 2 Broodlings. It's kind of like a Broodlord, if you will, but it does cost a lot of energy. And its final ability was the ability to infect a command center, and the only way you could do that was if the command center had very low HP. And if you did that, you could actually make Infested Terrans. And the old school Infested Terrans are suicidal melee units that did 500 damage when they hit anything. So the Infested Terrans are actually really cool. We'll have to see if Infested Terrans come out this game or not. Keep in mind, the prerequisite is a weakened command center. It has to be on fire, and then the queen just flies over it and kind of infests it. But this is a very interesting game right now because we've got so many queens out on the ground, out in the air. Sorry, not ground. This is the old school queen. Now the queens have done a good job of killing off siege tanks so far. We'll have to see if he continues to do that. Yes, he will. He spits out the broodlings and kills off a couple more tanks, and just spitting the swarm down on the ground below, allowing his lurkers to get up in the mix, and the lurkers are underground, pushing this Terran army away. Yet again, beautiful play by Fokins. MVP is actually in a lot of trouble, I feel like, even though he is maxed. I just feel like this composition of queens is too much for him to overcome. Now, granted, he has been making this switch over to more Goliaths, and Goliaths are really effective against queens. They have a great anti-air attack. Not only that, queens are not that effective spawning broodlings on Goliaths. That spawn broodling ability takes a ton of energy. So we'll have to see what happens here. The queens are coming in once again. They're targeting the tanks. One-shot KOing them. Now they've got to get out of there before they die. It looks like the science vessel's regulated to irradiating queens rather than defilers, just because there's not really that many defilers on the map. This is such an interesting Terran versus Zerg. Meanwhile, at the top, finally a victory for the Terran player as MVP is able to kill off a hatchery. Absolutely essential that our Terran kills off as many hatcheries as possible. And a couple of Goliaths here coming in. The defensive matrix going down on the frontal Goliath, giving it additional health so that it can kind of mind clear the lurkers. And now those queens coming in once again, but they're getting pummeled by the Goliaths. And that queen is going to go down as well. So I actually think that went very well for the Terran player, who is now making a huge shove down to the 6 o'clock. If he can establish his tanks up here on the high ground and take out this hatchery, he can be in control of this game. At the same time, also attacking over to the left. And that hatchery will most likely have to be canceled as well. Now look at this, it's a mass Hydra army! It's full-on Hydras against mech! Will there be enough Dark Swarms to keep these Hydras alive? I think so. If this Defiler can get up here and consume something, it should have enough energy to spit out another Dark Swarm. But it looks like Fokins is just going to back off a little bit and allow MVP to control the high ground. Definitely an interesting situation here, guys. And there is a command center coming up to the middle of the map, so it looks like MVP is interested in securing that command center. And now it looks like Fokins is coming up. He somehow breaks through the tanks, no doubt with the help of those 4 or so queens through the air, spawning broodling and killing off the tanks in one shot. And now the Zerg player has once again cleared the contain. What a game we have on our hands right here. The Hydras are at 3-2 apiece in terms of upgrades. The Goliaths are 2 across the board. Matters not though, because the upgrades are pretty much even at this point. And these Hydras are actually being dangerously cost-effective against the Terran mech. They're actually blowing their way through the tanks, and if they can get that last tank kill, that'd be great, but they are unable to. Just too many sieged up tanks up in the background. And wow, what a game we have on our hands here. It's just back and forth between the Terran and the Zerg. I absolutely think, though, that MVP is just trying to control this hatchery. He wants to get rid of the hatchery over here and lift off that command center and land it at that location. I can't believe he just lost his science vessel, though. But if he can control this command location here, not only does he destroy off the hatchery, but he also gets the ability to start securing this bottom left-hand corner and this pocket expansion, and thereby make more attacks over to the 6 o'clock. So this is a very crucial location now for MVP to control, and of course our Zerg player realizes that, bringing in the queens. He gets irradiated on his clump. He's got to split that queen apart, but he is unable to do so, and he ends up losing almost all of his queens and a ton of Hydras trying to break through this tank line. And on a map, whenever you have whenever you've got these kind of bridge terrain here, bridge terrain like this, it's very hard for Zerg to break through when there are siege tanks, because the Zerg units are forced to clump up. So that was great work by MVP, able to fend off that attack, able to secure this command center once that creep, of course, recedes, and now he's going to have the ability to attack this hatchery. And I think the queens may have been the undoing of Fokins, just trying to go for an unorthodox build, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work out too well for him. He probably should have just stuck with Ultras, to be honest. I don't know if queens are the way to go, but we'll have to see. The game isn't over yet. The Hydra's coming in to save this hatchery once again, and the hatchery's at 13 HP. Unbelievable. If he keeps this hatchery alive, that would be insane. Vessel also escapes with 13 HP itself, but now the Terran forces are starting to conglomerate below the ramp, and if MVP wanted to, he could just walk in and pick off that hatchery with one shot. I'm surprised he's not doing it. That hatchery is beginning to regenerate here. He should really attack this hatchery. Do it. Finish it off. Mortal Kombat style. Finish him. He's not going to do it. The hatchery is at 23 HP right now, and here comes Fokins. He's got to get a Dark Swarm off. He does get the Swarm. Not enough science vessels in the air to deal with the Defilers, and a play goes down for good measure. And now, it looks like he's also dropping Hydras. He's using the Overlords as blimps to pick up Hydras and drop them next to the tanks, thereby negating the tank long range. But it doesn't really matter. There's just too many reinforcements. So a cute play right there from the Zerg. It didn't work out too well for him. And now this hatchery will go down. So there it is. It definitely looks like our Terran commander here is in control of the game. He's secured this location, and like I said before, if he can secure this one, he has easy free access to the one in the bottom left and the pocket as well. So things looking pretty good here, but Fokins coming in once again, spawns Broodlings on 2 tanks, and by spawning the Broodlings actually killed off a 3rd tank. 3 tank kills for essentially energy, which is basically free. So well done right there by Fokins to try to stay in this game. We still have huge minefields in the middle of the map, queens on top of lurkers, the 12 o'clock controlled by the Terran, who is launching an attack over to the top as well, and this hatchery has gone down once already today. A second blow right here would really hinder Fokins, who's really only on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would say 5 to 6 bases. Our Terrans are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 as well, so it's pretty even right now. But wow, this is just an absolutely intense game. Still don't know which way this is going to go, even though the Terran has done an incredible job in the bottom. It looks like Fokins coming in with his queens once again. He picks off a tank, and he backs off. Wow, this is just insane. Those queens, really, even though he's been careless with them a couple of times this game, I really feel like the Spawn Broodling spell has more than paid off for itself. There is a Spawn Broodling once again, and that is going to allow Fokins to break this tank contain. Actually, if he can break this area here, he's going to have the ability to... No. I was going to say he's going to have the ability to run into and pick off this command center, but no, there's way too many tanks sieged up behind the bridge area, so that's going to be very hard to break even with Dark Swarm. And at the very least, so Fokins is going to be able to control the middle of the map for the first time in a very long time. In fact, he should play a little Minesweeper right now, bring out some of his Overlords and clear off the minefields and control the center. That would be really, really good to do. And maybe cut off the main from the extended command center down in the bottom left-hand corner. That would be a wise move right now, I feel like. But he is under pressure at the top. In fact, the hatchery, under so much pressure, it is going to explode as the Marines take it down. Well done right there, and he's just going to back up into the cozy home of his 12. And now here comes Fokins once again, his entire Queen army abreast. He is actually going to send the Queens down to the bottom. He picks up all the tanks. Huge spawn broodling play right there. And you guys might think, well, that was pretty easy. You just, select all your broodlings and B, click, B, click, B, click. But back in the days, you actually had to click every queen individually. So that was absolutely phenomenal play by the Zerg player, who has bursted his way into the bottom left-hand corner. And with a couple of Dark Swarms here, gonna be able to protect these Hydras as well. So well done, forcing the command center to lift off. Looking good right now, but he has no escape route unless he brings in some Overlords for a helicopter evacuation. These Hydras are probably gonna all die. But not bad at all. I think that attack was well worth it. He is actually going to be able to kill off, or at least delay, 2 command centers here. And here comes some Hydras down to the bottom left-hand corner. Meanwhile, Vulcan's also trying to keep the Terran player occupied with a couple of reinforcements. And in the middle of the map, huge move-outs here of Zerg units from all the bases. Just action all over the map right now. The command center is going to go down in the bottom left-hand corner. That was a little unexpected. And the SCV there trying to come in for the quick repair. Unfortunately, it was unable to do so. That command center, 400 minerals down the toilet for no reason at all. And of course, back in BroodWar, you could not call down mules for a quick repair. And so that command center being wasted. Back at the Zerg main, meanwhile, still no Ultra Cavern. This is actually really, really crazy. I cannot believe we're watching a late-game Zerg here with no Ultras, no Guardians. It's just straight-up Defilers and Queens. This is insane! And here comes the Queens once again. They are going to find off some tanks for free. More tanks going down. EMP Shockwave hits the Queens, though. All the Queens have run out of energy. And that is going to be a big, big play right there, because now the Zerg player cannot attack without Queen energy. That was a great EMP Shockwave. And Fokins is forced to pull out. Wow, this is insane. And I cannot believe I am about to say this, guys, but somehow, someway, MVP has been able to re-establish the command center over on the left-hand side of the map. I thought that was done. I thought it was doomsday, but of course, the Terran can lift off their command center, fly away, and then bring it back and repair it. And that's exactly what happened. Fokins unable to kill it off completely. And it looks like the Terran is getting some mining done at the very least. Right now, banking almost 2,000 minerals. The Zerg player banking almost 2K as well. It's such a close game right now. I don't know how this is going to go. Thankfully, there was a Defiler there, though. And the Defiler is going to be able to keep the Hydras alive under the Dark Swarm. Meanwhile, huge move out of ground troops from the Zerg side at the north, and he is going to try to flank this Terran army. At the same time, it looks like MVP realizes the impending flank is on the way. He's going to have to unsiege these tanks and back them out. Oh my god, he is not going to unsiege them. He's just going to leave them there in position. He has to be very careful how he plays his hand right now, because most of his units are at the 6 o'clock, which means the hatchery over here, or the command center over here, is exposed. That was a very good play from our Zerg player. Fokins now, all he has to do is get a Dark Storm down, and this command center is finished along with all the SCVs. What a beautiful move out of troops. That was just intelligent decision making from this Zerg overmind, from the Zerg player, realizing that most of the Terran units were occupied down at the 6. And so he has attacked into this location. He has killed off significant numbers of SCVs. And finally, MVP able to get reinforcements in position to deal with that. Meanwhile, Broodlings coming out of the Queens, continually picking off tanks for free. My goodness. And you would imagine at this point, it might be a good idea for MVP to just get some Vikings, excuse me, not Vikings, what am I thinking? Wraiths or Valkyries right now would be a pretty handy-dandy play so that he can deal with those Queens. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that yet this game, but this has been going on for so long, 30 minutes in now, and it's still undecisive, unclear who is going to win this game. I have no idea, guys. Both players are just fighting it out right now for control over whatever bases they can get. An SCV trying to come down to build a command center, that is not going to happen. And it's actually a Defiler who swarmed to save himself. Oh, but it went down. The thing about Dark Swarm is it actually did not give you full coverage against siege tanks. If siege tanks get some splash damage out of their ground attack, they can actually kill off units under the Dark Swarm, but it is pretty hard to do. Anyways, getting back to this game, let's see what happens here. It looks like Fokins has a large ground army now in the middle of the map. He has been macroing for a very, very long time. And tons of Hydras now. It's just a purely Hydra-based army. This is unbelievable. How often do you see a Zerg player going for mass Hydras against Terran? This is just unfeasible. But somehow it's working along with the Queens. The Queens pick off the tanks, which is really the Hydra's worst enemy. And then the Hydras have a heyday with the rest of the ground army. It would be great to see MVP bring out some Marines right now. Marines would be great, but unfortunately, just doesn't have the infrastructure to go into mass Marine production. Just lost a bunch of SCVs right there. And it looks like Fokins is just going to ravage the SCV count, force the command center to lift off. He has found a huge opening at the bottom left-hand corner, but at the same time, look at this! MVP making a big attack with his tanks and Goliaths. The Queen comes in, spawns Broodlings, couple of Overlords here, no cargo inside. But I think that the Hydralists, no, they will not be able to break through. Too many reinforcements coming in, and MVP is going to be able to break the center of the map. At the same time, though, he has lost the 2 bases at the bottom left, so it's still really, really bad, I think, for our Terran player MVP, because he hasn't really done any economic damage to this game at all. That's the difference between our Zerg and our Terran. The Terran just hasn't harassed the drone economy at all. He's the one who's been harassed. He's the one who's lost bases. And, you know, despite facing off against the largely inefficient Hydras against siege tanks, he's still not able to win the long-term war, I think. Even though he's going to win this small battle, I just don't think the Terran player is going to win the long-term war. He's running out of money. That's the bottom line. The only place where he's mining from right now is this 12 o'clock location, and the Zerg is still mining out of 1, 2, look at this base, it has 2 minerals patches per side. Like 1 or 2, 3 bases for the Zerg, and the Terran is just mining out of nothing. So what you see here is essentially what you get. His gas income is abysmal right now. He's getting like 4 gas per second, which is just terrible. And so the longer this goes on, I think the prolonged conflict is just going to wear out our Terran player. It's a war of attrition at this point, and the Queens definitely win in a war of attrition, although the MP Shockwave just landed down. It did not hit all the Queens, and the Queens spawning Broodlings here. That Defiler, so lucky he escaped with his life alive, got some swarms down, and he's still alive! Wow. And it looks like our Zerg player is going to be able to use the Dark Swarm to continue to punch a hole through the middle of the map. He is going to kill off all these tanks, I think? Yes? No, those tanks will survive. But 88 supply now for the Terran, 155 for the Zerg, who has been able to pull way ahead in economy and an army right now. So, well done at that. And the most amazing thing of all, like I said before, Mr. Fokins has been doing this entirely with Queens. He hasn't made Ultras or Broodlords this game at all. That's just mind-boggling that a Zerg player can win a prolonged ZVT matchup without building any Broodlords. Excuse me, not Broodlords. Of course, Broodlords would just be so overpowered in BroodWar. But it's mind-boggling that our Zerg has not made any Ultras or Guardians this game, and it's still working really well. Now, that Science Vessel count has gotten pretty large. I'm just actually going to kill off the vessels, though. And this could be the coup de grace here. Queens coming in from the south. They will finish off the rest of the tanks. And I think MVP is just running way too low on money at this point. I just don't see how he can continue to fight this long-term war. Let's check his base, actually. Tons of factories. 1, 2, 3, God, like 8 or 9 factories just mass producing. But he doesn't have the gas to afford any more units, and he is going to lose, at the very least, another command center over on the 9 o'clock side. The Zerg is just continuing to reinforce from all the hatcheries. Just look on the minimap, guys. Little orange dots moving out from every single base. That's scary. And you've got a huge Zerg clump amassing in the middle of the map. And this is probably going to be the final attack from MVP. And unless he gets a miracle here, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure how he's going to win this game. Here comes the Queen once again leading the charge with those Broodlings. And those Broodlings are doubly effective because not only do they kill the tank right away, but they force the tanks to shoot themselves because of the Broodlings. So there it is. There is the GG. And it is important to note here that this was an interclan war between 2 players from the Minus team. So big game, and that was sick. That was a sick Terran versus Zerg. So 37 minutes long. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was one of the better Terran versus Zergs I've seen in a very long time, and even though both these guys aren't recognized as pros, still very high level StarCraft Brood War. And congratulations to Minus Fokins for using a Mass Queen strategy, which actually worked. Unbelievable. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you guys do, check my YouTube channel out, where you guys can find more YouTube StarCraft videos. I am at youtube.com/HDStarCraft, and you guys can also find me on Facebook and Twitter at HDStarCraft as well. This is HD, signing out.